Hello, everyone. My name is Lori Quiller, and welcome to the Air Force Culture and Language Center's live Facebook event. We're here today with AFCLC's Language Division Chief, Mr. Christopher Chesser, and we would like to invite you to join us in the Air Force's Global Classroom. Before we begin, we ask that you observe just a few simple rules. Maintain principles and standards of professional behavior and communication. Please mute your mics while others are speaking. Hold your questions until the end of the brief, where you may unmute your mics and ask your questions, or you may enter them into the chat. Follow proper OPSEC procedures and guidance, and remain cognizant that Facebook is an unclassified medium. With these in mind, let's get started. Mr. Chesser, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Lori.
So we're here to talk about LEAP. Tell us about LEAP.
Okay, well, it's my pleasure. And I'd like to begin by thanking all the language-capable airmen, guardians, and their supervisors for joining us on this TV event today. Your involvement today speaks volumes about how you value language regional expertise and culture, or as we like to call it in the Air Force, LREC. LREC is a critical capability that is necessary for building our interoperability, developing partnerships, and for better understanding our adversaries' ways of war. And Lori, it was for these reasons, as well as for other reasons, that some very smart folks, who I have to say were before my time, envisioned LEAP about 12 years ago, and then in 2012 stood up this program as a program of record. LEAP looks for talent in the Air Force and the Space Force. Talent that is willing and able, that wants to be utilized. They're looking for service members who really value their LREC skills and have a vision for using their skills for their service. LEAP is a voluntary program, and each year service members apply for the program, officer and enlisted, active duty, because that's how the program is funded. And that's where the requirements lie, to develop their skills over time. And the AFCLC develops LEAP Scholars skills through eMentor online synchronous language courses with native level instructors, as well as periodic language intensive training events, which are basically TDYs in most cases, but we also have some virtual TDYs. And through these courses, service members have a means to develop those skills and enhance those skills and use those skills. Right now, on this very day, throughout the world, LEAP scholars are using their skills either in a language school in Santiago, Chile, or partnering with the Japanese and Australians on a very important exercise, serving as foreign area officers, teaching as U.S. Air Force Academy instructors, just so many different capacities. Because they stepped up and they said, I have the skills, I have the passion, I have the desire, I have the background to use those skills. And the Air Force recognized them for a potential long-term return on investment. And so since LEAP was stood up, the AFCLC has been developing and fostering and nurturing these scholars to serve the needs, serve the mission needs of the Air Force and Space Force today, as well as the needs of the future.
I noticed that you refer to them as scholars. Why is that?
Okay, scholars. So
Scholars.
Yes, scholars are lifelong learners. Scholars are individuals who recognize that they have something special to give to a certain occupation or field. They recognize that they can build upon those skills, and they gravitate to other scholars, other lifelong learners. That's really what a LEAP scholar does. They recognize that they have something that they can give to the greater good, to the service in defense of their nation. They enjoy networking within their community, and they love that connection. And one example of what LEAP scholars have done are LEAP clubs. A few years ago, a couple enterprising scholars at various bases, to include Ramstein and bases in San Antonio and other locations, Scott, began to formed their own LEAP clubs, and this became a way to kind of enhance that scholarship, that networking, that development with one another. And although it's a private organization at each base, on the AFCLC homepage under Air University, one can find a directory of these LEAP clubs.
So to become a LEAP scholar, would an airman or a guardian have to be fluent in a specific language?
Yeah, that's a really good question. The minimum standard for selection to LEAP is a 1-1 in 2 modalities for some languages and a 1+1+ in 2 modalities for other languages. When you think of fluency, oftentimes one kind of thinks about a score or a measurement. But fluency is more than just whether one is a kind of a beginner or an intermediate or a more advanced scholar in their language. Some LEAP scholars who have like a 3-3 Defense Language Proficiency Test or Oral Proficiency Interview score are seeking, and they need topic fluency to be more adept in their AFSC to talk about airmanship or guardianship in their target language. Others really need to understand a little bit beyond the region that they're most familiar with or the dialect that they're most familiar with. Maybe a LEAP scholar needs to know better technical vocabulary in medical terminology or maintenance terminology. So it's more than just, is one, this level or that level. There are different aspects and dynamics to fluency. And when we look for a potential good return on investment for LEAP, we're looking for service members who have a desire and a need to grow. So we're definitely looking to build fluency regardless of one's proficiency score.
Are there some other different benefits to being in the LEAP program?
They say with language, if you don't use it, you lose it, Lori. And that's a big driver and a reason why someone would want to be a part of LEAP. Imagine developing your Japanese language skills at the US Air Force Academy or a university, anywhere in the CONUS where you're studying through the Air Force ROTC, or maybe you used it on a mission trip or you studied it at home with your family growing up and you just set it on the shelf. Life gets in the way, in a good way. Family, career opportunities, but you just step away. What LEAP does, it's a motivator, it's a driver to help you develop your skills over time, to give you those booster shot experiences that work around your schedule, so that the AFCLC isn't telling you have to go to this course at this time, but you are letting us know what works best for your schedule. And that works well for your boss, it works well for your spouse, it works well for everything that you have going on with your very busy Air Force or Space Force career. So language development and that flexibility. As I mentioned earlier, networking is very important.
Right.
Career impacting opportunities are there. It's one thing to be able to say on a 1206 or in a performance report, I studied this language, I did this course. Well, that's good, but what might be more impactful is to say that the AFCLC asked me to translate a very important letter from the senior defense official in one country from Arabic to English, so that a senior leader of the United States could better understand that letter, and there could be some building of partnership opportunities there through my involvement. A one-liner on an EPR and OPR that speaks to a translation event of that magnitude is powerful. Every year are examples of LEAP scholars doing those kinds of things, participating in group projects to build security cooperation, being selected for different exercises and opportunities that they would not have had they not had been working and networking through the AFCLC.
Well, it certainly does sound rewarding.
Absolutely. And one more thing, couple more things to mention is that, I think many of those who have logged in today, when they come into work, They recognize that it may be just a typical normal day, or it could be an opportunity to have that breakthrough moment where they actually get to use their capabilities. Service members who are in LEAP see language as that type of capability. And the final benefit I would say would be foreign language proficiency bonus. So individuals selected to LEAP, provided they have the right proficiency level, regardless of language, can potentially qualify for Flip B, foreign language proficiency bonus pay. So that's a little extra incentive to a LEAP scholar to maintain their skills over time.
How would an airman or a space guardian go about applying for LEAP?
Well, I'll make it simple.
Simple is good.
Type in AFCLC on any browser. It will get you to the Air University site. And under the language section, there is a PDF that speaks to the cadet application guidance. The cadet application window is currently open. It goes through the 7th of March. And then on the 2nd of May, we've got another round of officer and enlisted board. It talks about all the different guidance for cadets and then an officer and enlisted. And one can submit their application through our leader site.
Well, I know that with only 2 boards a year, and it being volunteer, LEAP has to be incredibly competitive. So can you give us some idea of what would make a successful applicant?
Absolutely. Well, and when you say competitive, it really is. The percent selection rate really kind of varies from year to year, but it could very easily this year be 40% or lower, depending on how many applicants we have. So it is very competitive. A few things that might make a very strong package. First of all, a good student. If one is a good student, that will really shine through in transcripts, in what one says about themselves, in terms of how they learn languages, what their plan is for learning languages, developing their language skills, maybe in one language other than English, or maybe multiple languages. Their vision for using their skills. One needs to articulate how they think they can use their skills for the benefit of Air Force and Space Force missions. Tie that to ongoing issues, ongoing priorities, and make it rank and AFSC specific. One who is a staff sergeant need not articulate the same thing that a master sergeant might articulate, in terms of responsibilities. But that staff sergeant needs to think about what they might be doing as a master sergeant in the future. A medic might write something a little bit differently than an avionics tech might write in their application in terms of how they envision being able to use their skills in the long term. And what they say needs to be backed up by their performance. If one has OPRs, EPRs, training reports, those need to back that up. Also, what their supervisor says and what their commander has to say. And what the board will do is they will rate each candidate on a scale of 6 to 10 in a number of categories to include language learning, cross-cultural competence, utilization goals, job performance, and academics.
So with it being so competitive, and there's so many folks who are trying to apply, and some of them are actually here with us today, I'm sure. Can you offer some tips to our applicants for a successful application?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so first of all, number one, take your time, spend some time on these questions. For example, you'll have an opportunity to talk about how you learn your language, how you develop your language skills. Use all 200 words of that block. Write it down, set it aside, come back to it later. Do the same thing for the other questions. Really think about what you want to say about yourself. But the Air Force and the Space Force are not just looking for good LREC talent. They're looking for leadership. They're looking for someone to use those skills for the mission. That's the return on investment. So one should really think about their leadership skills, how they've exhibited those in the past, their experiences, and how they plan to grow and develop those skills in the future. Number 2, once you write all that down, go talk to your boss, talk to your commander, talk to your supervisor. If you don't feel comfortable for whatever reason talking to your commander about this, maybe begin the conversation with your supervisor, maybe talk to your first sergeant, to your ops officer. One may say, well, my boss is super busy, or she's TDY. Well, that's why one should always start early, because the conversation really can begin now. And for those who are logging in today and taking advantage of this opportunity, particularly for those who are applying for the Cadet Board, but particularly those who are applying for the Officer Enlisted Board, you've got some time. You've got some time to make those connections, have those conversations, because your supervisor has an opportunity to put in a 200-character push note or narrative about you. Same thing with your commander, 200-character narrative. They also get to rate you on certain characteristics about your professionalism and your skills as a leader and as a technician. So you really want to have that conversation with them. Number 3 seems a little bit silly, but it can really make a big difference. Make your application look professional. Attachments must not be sideways or upside down. If they are, it will render your package ineligible. That may seem kind of harsh, but Mr. Jeff Robinson, he goes by Fro Robinson, is our new selection manager. He's a retired senior NCO and senior NCO Academy instructor, and he's looking for the very best, in terms of format of the applications. And so don't let him down. Please put your very best foot forward. Make the applications look good. One of the pieces of guidance this year, due to some potential compatibility issues with Adobe that we want to avoid, is for applicants to print their performance reports or training reports first, scan them in, and then upload them into the application. So we can ensure that the board members are able to read them and take into account your amazing performance. And then finally, and I hate this to be my final tip, but if you don't succeed the first time, try trying again. I've heard many testimonies from LEAP scholars who have said, I didn't make it the first time. And considering how competitive it is, considering how the Air Force may be looking to fill certain gaps in the inventory one year that may be a little bit different from another year, that should be very understandable. What can be very tough is when you feel like you have a great deal to give to the program and go through the program and you don't get selected. And that's a possibility. So please put your very best possible application forward, follow these tips, read the guidelines carefully, talk to other individuals who have made it as LEAP scholars and are making a big difference to the program. And we hope that you're counted among those who are selected in 2022.
Sounds like the board's going to have its hands full. And we have the deadline for the Cadet Board is the first one that's coming up in March, correct?
That's correct.
Correct. Thank you so much, Mr. Chesser. And I know that we have a lot of questions that are coming in. So if you don't mind, can we turn to those questions and let's see what folks are asking? Let's see.
Absolutely.
There you go.
Thank you,
and
Mr.
everyone,
Chesser.
this is Fro Robinson. He's our selection manager. And
Hello,
I will let
greetings,
you
everyone.
go. I'll let you go with the questions.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Mr. Chesner, and thank you, Lori. I appreciate you having given me the opportunity to ask some questions from those professionals out there in Facebook world. So the first question that we have is from Akama Asenso, and their question is: when you get selected as a LEAP scholar at base A and you PCS to base B, does your status follow you?
It does. So as LEAP is a career spanning program, and thank you so much for that question. LEAP is a career spanning program. So one of the great things about LEAP is that wherever you go, you're going with it. In fact, on any given day, our team is working with service members at bases all over the world. Even when you're deployed, we take that into account. You can let the AFCLC know whether or not you can continue to take online courses, for example, while you're deployed, or if you need to go on kind of like a hold status while you're deployed, we allow that. For those who are embarking on a very challenging technical training course or involved in an advanced academic program, can be placed on hold status while they're in that new status. So one can request hold, but since language is a continuous development endeavor, we encourage our LEAP scholars not to put their language on the shelf for very long at all, but find ways to practice it even in some small way weekly, if not daily. But yes, wherever you go, LEAP is part of you as long as you're in the service.
Thank you, sir. Another great question we have from Kayla Wood. Do you take into account how many times a person has applied to LEAP and base that during the selection process?
No, that's not taken into account. Everyone gets a shot like they're being looked at for the very first time, and the board is going to take each application on its own merit.
Thank you, sir. Akoma Asenso has a second question for us. Do you have a waiver for the 4-year time and service eligibility?
There is not a waiver for the 4-year time and service eligibility. And there's a reason for that 4-year time and service eligibility. We want to make sure that service members have an opportunity to really develop in their core AFSC, and we encourage those to really use various tools from the Defense Language Institute, as well as Joint Language University and any other DoD and commercially available tools to develop their skills. They can participate in LEAP clubs if there's one at their base, or at least be there to kind of learn about tips for applying for LEAP. So there's a lot of things that one can do as they're waiting to get to that 4 years of eligibility.
Awesome. Daku Sharon has a great question as well. Do you guys take into consideration if someone has 2 different languages under their belt plus their DLAB?
Yes. So the board really looks at the whole person, like I said. So they'll rate them based on language learning, cross-cultural competence, as well as a number of factors. I'm not going to say that having more than one language other than English is going to make you a stronger candidate. It really kind of depends. But having more than one language, more than one DLPTs, for example, French and Arabic or Japanese and Korean, can definitely show that you have that versatility. The board does look at DLAB. However, I think factors that weigh a little bit more heavily is what your supervisor says about you, what your commander says about you, your long-term learning goals, what your academic scores say about you.
And this question may be very similar to the question you just asked, but it does bring up a point from Brandon Plate. Does an OPI make a big difference in an application?
It really depends. However, we always encourage service members to take the OPI. I think having an OPI would say a lot that one is not only trying to demonstrate their skills in reading and listening, but also speaking. And for some languages, there really only is the OPI. Some languages don't have that reading component. It's just the OPI, and we're able to get the speaking and the listening piece out of that OPI.
Okay, sir. Paul Lusinski has a question for us. If not accepted for one language on multiple attempts, would you recommend applying under a different language that may be more desired, or should one continue to reapply with the original language?
What we would encourage is service members to submit all of their DLPT scores. As long as they meet the minimum standards for those languages will be considered. So one might identify that their primary choice is French and their secondary choice is Arabic, but if there's needs based on needs of the Air Force and depending on one's career field, they might be selected for Arabic versus the French, as an example.
Thank you, sir. And then we're going to have, in the interest of time, we're just going to keep it rather short. So we're just going to ask 2 more questions from the audience, okay? And for whatever question is asked out there in Facebook world, I'll be sure to get back in touch with you. Please I'll get back in touch with you through email, so rest assured. Okay, so the next question is from Kelvin Chong. Will you guys be able to provide the reason on why some applicants didn't get selected in the future?
Okay, so that's a really good question. We do not require the board members to make copious notes about each applicant. Considering the volume of applicants and considering the limited time we have, I mean, for every board, it really is a 2-day process, and it really takes up almost the entire day each day for the board members to allow as many people as possible to apply for LEAP and to give the board members the time they need to go through the packages. We do not require notes on every applicant. So we really don't know exactly precisely what the board member was thinking or exactly what they had to say. However, for every board, at the end of every board, we will provide some general feedback to the non-selects. And it will, some of them may be some, regurgitation of the things that we talked about today, but there might be some additional insights that might help the non-selects improve the next year. What we found over the years is, some of the big reasons that the applicants may not really predict could be the supervisor's endorsement, commander's endorsement weren't as strong as they thought it might be, or maybe what they had to say about themselves and their language learning goals weren't really on point with what the board member was looking for. And again, that can be very subjective.
Thank you, sir. Joseph Calamayo has a great question, and I said that we were only going to go with 2 questions before. Well, this time we're really only going to go with 2 more questions. Okay, Joseph Calamayo has a great question. I was unaware of the PDF problem. Will you let us know if our submitted files do not come through?
So, selection manager, what's your answer to that?
Okay, thank you, sir. So personally, me as a selection manager, there's a lot of packages that will be coming down the pipeline, okay? And every package will have a different reason why it doesn't get accepted, okay? Our board is not required to provide us with a lot of feedback. However, for whatever reason, your application, should it not get accepted, you will be sure to get a response from the selections mailbox stating why your package was not selected, such as if your documents were not submitted correctly as an upright format, or if you had missing documentation. Yes. So one of the issues that we've had before in the past, where we're all very aware with the issues regarding PDFs not being able to display in certain browsers, or if it's a different PDF file and you're not able to see them. So we've mitigated all of that by having the individual scan their document and print it into PDF format so that we can view it under all different browsers. So to respond to your question, yes, you will hear back from the office if there was an issue regarding the PDF.
Thank you, sir.
All right, sir. And last question from Kelvin Chong. I'm sorry, we'll go with from Kayla Wood. There is a language that is listed under the language list, Papuanga, but it is not listed as an available exam. Is this language not available to apply for?
So off the cuff, I would encourage you to talk to your test control officer. And if your test control officer can't help you with that, please shoot us a note. One thing that you'll find on the AFCLC site are our org box addresses. AFCLC.leap.selection@us.af.mil is the one that we're primarily using. We also have afclc.language@us.af.mil. It's kind of our backup box for selection management. If you didn't get to write those down, we can definitely well, the best way to find it is on our site and in the memos that we have provided on our site in the application guidance. So if you have a question that just is not answered by the guidance with the frequently asked questions, please shoot us that question and we'll get back to you.
And that's all we have for the questions right now, sir.
Awesome. Well, Lori and Fro, I want to thank you all for your facilitation of this event today. The AFCLC has been amazed by the efforts that LEAP scholars have been able to do and the service that they provided to their country. One of the great ways to learn more about LEAP scholars is to go to our site and read some of the amazing spotlight stories. LEAP scholars are serving in ways that I think the program founders just, that they had hoped for, but they had never imagined or even visioned. From serving as astronauts to solving problems, challenges with interoperability in Colombia, to really working through some vexing issues on an international affairs stage. LEAP scholars, airmen and guardians are impacting their services. It's a crucial part to our national defense and a key solution to what our services need for the future. So be a part of it. Apply, follow the guidance, talk to your bosses, put your best foot forward, and good luck.
Outreach has definitely had a lot of fun telling these stories, Mr. Chesser. They are amazing and very inspiring, that's for sure. And thank you so much for joining us today. I'd like to thank you, Mr. Chesser, my outreach partner behind the scenes, Ms. Michaela McCurry, our moderator, Mr. Fro Robinson, who is also with the Language Division, and many thanks to those of you who've joined us for this episode of the Air Force's Global Classroom. This video will stay and live on AFCLC's Facebook page. So if you still have questions, please feel free to put them there and we'll be checking it later in the week. If you didn't get to see the whole thing or missed part of the beginning, come back and it will live there. So feel free to watch more. And remember, we are AFCLC.